It's not here.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the ARW discussion. We've got an international panel here today. A lot of very illustrious YouTubers, and we're going to start off talking about Tinkercad. So I'm going to talk about it for a minute. Now, the reason I'm talking about Tinkercad, there's a lot of old guys like me. They got a 3D printer, but they don't know Fusion 360. And Tinkercad is like the beginner version of stuff, and it's incredibly easy compared to Fusion 360. And there's always now, Chuck, if you want to do something with Tinkercad, you go on YouTube and ask, and there'll be 3 or 4 different guys' videos there to tell you how to do it. Okay. Now I made this. I made this thing. It's a support for iPhone to go on a tripod, and I also had Tinkercad build the threads in there for the little 1/4-20 screw. So Tinkercad can do that. Tinkercad can make you a metric gear. Can make you. It tries to make metric screws. You have to go in there and lie to it, But there's a guy online that'll tell you how to do it, and I think it's really a good alternative for Fusion 360. Get you started, and I know Chuck don't like it, but
I see Chuck doesn't like it.
We need to ask Chuck something now. We need to say, well, what does Chuck like?
But real quick here. So Harold and I, we started talking about it, and I can draw on 2D CAD, and as Randy knows, I can draw a little bit on Fusion, and I finally understood 2 and 3D, the planes and stuff, and started getting there. But Harold and I were talking. He goes, this Tinkercad's just simple. And so I opened up Tinkercad, and I don't know if you guys ever looked at it, but there's all these little shapes, and you grab the shape and you move it over onto the platen, and then you try to do it. I couldn't do it. So subsequently, my granddaughter about 3 months ago says, Papa, she goes, I need to make this thing. Can you print it for me? I'm going to draw it. Great. So she draws it, sends me the thing. I print it, 3D print it. I go over to her house. I go, where'd you draw this? She opens up Tinkercad.
Wow. Oh, right.
And she just starts, she just grabs it and just starts moving stuff around faster than I could even see. And I went, oh, that's great. I can't do it. So that's my story on Tinkercad. I can do Fusion.
Well, maybe it's just beneath your level. That's all.
I don't know. Everything's above my level.
I got on the site and I tried to mess with it, and I couldn't do it.
Well, I
never tried, but if I have whatever problem with my phone or computer, I ask my kids, and before I end my question, the problem is fixed. These guys, these young people, they grew up in it.
Oh yeah.
For them, it's natural.
I use SketchUp, and I'm fairly happy with it. But I will admit that, like any CAD, there's a heck of a learning curve.
That's unfortunate, but that's the truth.
Yeah, I can tell you that, like in my teaching career, we had to do graphics. That was one of the subjects that we taught, and we were forced to go and learn CAD, and started off with AutoCAD, the old 2D CAD, and then we progressed into 3D CAD. And over the last 20 years of my career, we worked with some pretty high-end stuff. One of the programs that I was pushed into was the one called CATIA. CATIA is Dassault's high-end 3D CAD, and that's the one Boeing uses. So we were actually given this program for free. If you went and bought it off the shelf, it was $1 million. It was so big, it had its own start menu. And once you went into it, they called them workbenches. So you drew a part and you took it from one workbench to the next. So there was a graphic studio workbench, there was a CAD CAM workbench, kinematic workbench, and the part just went from one part of the program to the next. And one of the things that I learned very early on is that when you show kids, they've got no fear, and they will start exploring the program. And what they do is they'll try every single tool on the workbench to see what it does. And the thing with kids is they understand you can't break the program. So when things go wrong, they just close it and reopen it and they start again. And I had one student in particular who was incredible. He would go home at night. He had a laptop with his CATIA program on it. And he would come back the next day and he would have 4 or 5 models that he'd made. And each one of them was better than the next. And his mother told me he would sit in front of the TV with the laptop on his lap and he would just work with this program. And he was just curious. He was willing to have a look at what each tool would do. And I started to adopt the same mentality. So you just sort of go into the program. But another thing I learned was that you should never just play with it. So what I used to do is set myself a task. I'd say I want to make a bracket to go on a machine. And I'd know what the bracket had to look like. I knew what the dimensions had to be. And you just kept working at it until you got it right. But if you just sort of play around, you draw shapes and you do this, do that, and things go wrong, you just think, oh, let's start again. But there's no requirement to actually go on and master a particular level. So, when you talk about learning curve, I think the important thing to do is say, this is the goal I want to achieve, and just don't give up until you get there. But I had to play with Tinkercad yesterday. I've never had a look at it before. It reminded me of a similar program that came out, and it was aimed at kids. The idea was to get them working with 3-dimensional shapes, and it was one of those things where you can mold primitive shapes. So you start off with a sphere, and you put a spot on the sphere, and you can stretch it out, or you push it, or there it is. It's very similar to that. But I quickly, because I sort of work with Inventor, that's mostly what I do these days. I started looking at Tinkercad. Now I quickly realized there were limitations. There were things I couldn't do, which I could do with my other CAD program.
Yeah, I've had a friend of mine using CATIA.
Yeah, what Mark was saying there, I don't know how many times I went on Fusion and tried to follow somebody's YouTube channel or try to do something, but with really no reason to be there, just trying to learn it, and without an end desire to create something. As soon as you start clicking a few times and you get puzzled, you just go, oh, hell, walk away. Once you have something you really want to design, you just keep fighting. Or you call Randy, you can get there.
I mess with Inventor.
I don't have his number.
I'm not going to give it to you.
I messed with Inventor a couple of years ago and managed to do some stuff in it. This was before Fusion 360 was a thing.
I like Inventor, actually. I used it a bunch before Fusion.
My go-to design program way back when was Microsoft Visio.
I've got that on the desk, but I can't remember using it.
I used it all the time. I just throw the little 2D sketches on there, the shapes on there, and size them to what I wanted, and then print out my plans. And for me, that's how it worked. I wasn't trying to do something to throw into CAM or anything. So that worked for a long time. It ain't working now. I've been trying to learn FreeCAD. Part of the makerspace, we got to be open source, and FreeCAD's about the only decent open source CAD program you can find out there. And I spent the past week playing around with the sheet metal workbench. Like CATIA, it's got workbenches, and you take your part from workbench to workbench. You start off with a sketch, and you do a base sketch, and then you go into the bending or the sheet metal workbench, and you extrude and do all that stuff. And I managed to come up with a pattern. See if this works. There it goes. And this is a wood pattern so that I can lay it on top of my sheet metal and plasma cut out around it so that I can bend it up. The one thing I did find is there is no allowances for specifying nozzle diameters or anything, so I had to take the flat pattern after I unfolded it and go back in and re-sketch around it and then do my offset for the nozzle diameter. That was a fun experience and aggravation that I had there.
So what different workbenches does it have? Like sheet metal, obviously. What else?
It's got 20 or 30 workbenches off the bat, and you can add way more stress analysis. Well, let me bring it up. I don't even remember. 1 second.
Do they have like for carpentry and woodworking and?
Well, it's not quite like that. I'll bring up the program and I'll just read off the list here.
While you're doing that, I got to give kudos to Harold on Tinkercad. He designed that ball turner. That was on Tinkercad, Harold, and you did a great job on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's way more than I could do with it. Of course, I'll have to admit I worked with it an hour and gave up.
Yeah, me too.
Well, that's one of the,
I've never even tried it.
well, that's one of the bad parts. You get old, you get frustrated really quick. When you're young, it's an adventure, you know. By golly, I'm going to do this. When you get old, if it takes too long, you're not going to mess with it. The heck with it. I'm going to do it something else, you know.
I think you tend to stick with what you know too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
SketchUp, so anything else seems awkward.
Yep. All right, so here's the workbenches, guys. It's got an architectural, something called assembly. An assembly lets you take a bunch of your different drawings or your parts and put them together. A draft, drawing, a fastener, so you can do screws and bolts and stuff like that. FEM, and I think that's some sort of stress analysis, image inspection, a mesh design, OpenSCAD, which is a new kind of like a programmatic way of doing your CAD. I like OpenSCAD. Part design and part. Those are two different ones. One is an additive process where you take primitive objects. I think this is similar to how Tinkercad works. So you take a sphere and you drop it on there and size it. Take a cube and overlap it and then tell it to fuse, that kind of thing.
Right.
Then part design is where you take the 2D sketch and extrude it up and build it out that way. So you've got additive and you've got primitives. Path, and that's their CAM. Points, ray tracing, reverse engineering, something in here called robot. I have no idea what that one is. Sheet metal, the sketcher, which is used by just about every one of these as some sort of base. It's got a spreadsheet module so that you can go in and do parametric stuff, which is one thing I did when I was playing with that sheet metal workbench. Tech drawing, where you can take your finished product in and take a view and bring it into a tech drawing so that you can do, your 3 or 4 design, your three sides and your isometric view and that kind of stuff. Web and something called Dodo Workbench. This one's one I just added. Dodo Workbench lets you do tubular design. So you can do squares and I-beams and make a wireframe structure, and it's real easy. And it'll spit out a frame out of tubular metal or square metal or I-beams or whatever, which I thought was pretty cool. And that's just what I have loaded in my FreeCAD. I don't know what else is out there. There's lots more workbenches.
I must say, when I looked at FreeCAD, I downloaded that and installed it on my computer because at the time, my version of Inventor was out of date. And I've got this deal with Autodesk where, because I'm an educator, or I was, and I'm still doing some tutoring work with students, they allow me to use all of their products for free. So I can download any Autodesk product and use it at home here, and there are no limitations. When I had problems with Inventor, I thought I'd better have something else as a backup. So I got FreeCAD and had a look at it. And I don't know about you, Billy, I took one look at it and I thought, this is CATIA. It looks exactly the same. The color of the screen, the way the tools were designed and so on. I think somebody had a good look at CATIA and said, let's make a free version of this. But CATIA was built on the old Unix platform. So it actually looked outdated, even though it was really a very upmarket program. But I think FreeCAD's got a lot to offer. But if you were starting from scratch, if you had never done any 3D CAD before, I think you'd find it pretty tough.
It's definitely got some stuff that not congruent with other CAD programs that are a little weird. A lot of Fusion 360 people, jumped off ship and went to FreeCAD because of their licensing policy way back. And they were complaining about some of the stuff that FreeCAD was doing because it was really weird for them. There's a lot of people that are waiting for the 1.0 version to come out just hoping that it's going to be, somewhere on par with Fusion 360. There is some deficiencies, and it can be frustrating. But once you get it figured out, for the most part, you can start doing stuff in it. I'm getting there. CAD's never really been my strong suit.
So, guys, can I ask you what are you actually doing with it? Because I don't have a plasma cutter, or a CNC miller, or even a 3D printer. So I use Visio, and most of it I model in my head.
I mean,
you can. I had a look. Well, I just going to say I had a look at Tinkercad today, and also Fusion 360, so I can see the power of it. So far,
here's something a little 3-jaw chuck I got.
Yeah.
Videos up on the channel, but I had an idea of making a hex piece that would hold it. And I mean, you can go out and make it in wood first or something, but I drew it. Actually, I drew it, and then I said, "Oh, I've got to change it." And so went in and modified it. Can't beat these 3D printers. I mean, it's
3D.
Yeah,
printer.
it's so simple to think of something and pop it out and try it.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
I think the other thing that 3D CAD is really good for is for doing simulations. So if I'm making a part on the milling machine or doing manual machining, and I want to lay out a pattern of holes, and I want that to be really precise, I can model that in CAD, and then I can do a 2D drawing, print that on paper with all of the relevant angles and offsets and coordinates and so on. And you can take that paper pattern, you can stick it straight on your material if you want to, and you can sort of center punch through all the hole centers. Right. So it can be really low tech, if you want to do it that way. But I had to do a job where I had to locate a position of a pin, and it had to be really precisely angled around a center line. And I could do that in CAD, and then I could give myself an X and a Y coordinate to locate where that pin had to go. So even if you're not using 3D CAD to do 3D printing, or if you're not doing CNC, just as an aid for laying out stock, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I draw just about anything before I build it.
I draw everything.
Yeah, same here.
Well,
I draw it, but not in CAD.
That's right. I draw it in Visio. That's the point.
I do the napkin thing.
Yeah, or as Michelle's got there, a pen and a pad.
I take that back. I do CAD. I do coordinated design.
Well, I am going to have to learn it, to be honest, because my son is a CAD designer. And I can't let him know how to do it, and if I don't know, I'm going to have to learn that.
I'm not very good at math, and CAD does all the math for you. Not all, most of it.
Enough.
Evenly spaced holes, it does it for you.
Yeah.
I got a 3D printer so I could make patterns for casting things.
Yeah.
And I sort of let it delay me at first because it has all the little ridges in the side. But I discovered if you just whack the pattern pretty good, it'll come out of the sand without tearing anything up anyway. And your casting may have some little lines on the side of it, but that's seldom ever important.
Harold, you can get some of that line out by using some of that self-leveling paint and stuff and spray painting your 3D printed patterns. Yeah.
I've got that stuff for the lost PLA casting, that expensive stuff.
Yeah.
You take a little alcohol, rubbing alcohol on a Kleenex and just smooth it out.
Okay.
That stuff's really expensive though.
Yeah. Well, you can do that with ABS if you do acetone.
Yeah.
We talked about this once before.
Yeah, we did, I think.
Okay.
But I listened to Mr. Pete. He was using it without doing anything to smooth the edges, and his come out really good. And I thought, well, the heck with it, I'm doing work for nothing.
Do you know, somebody's just made a comment there about cardboard added design. And literally, I'm doing something right now with cardboard.
Why not? I use my blackboard.
Cardboard works great.
A motor and a bracket, and to me, right, okay, we've got a pile of cardboard here. Rather than putting it out for recycle, I'll just use it. Now I could actually use CAD, but now maybe that's my next project, to use CAD to do that.
My buddy Carl makes many of his designs out of wood first, just carves them up out of wood and uses that because
Wood, that's a bit radical. I think I'd have to stick with cardboard or
Well, no, that was something else I was going to mention.
Makes a big mess.
The
Yeah.
space uses Inkscape. Uses Inkscape for the laser cutter since it's 2D, and it's you'll find a lot of people out there using something like CorelDRAW for laser cutters and such. So they use Inkscape, and then I have a program that converts that automatically into G code for the laser cutter, and they can go straight to the laser cutter and cut it out.
What program is that?
It's it's some Python script in that background. You got part of it on your CNC machine.
Really?
That upload manager that I installed has that built in. I just didn't install the CAM package because it's strictly for two-dimensional stuff and wouldn't have worked for lathe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I use for my plasma cutter. I use Inkscape to turn it into a DXF, and then I take it over to SheetCam to finish up doing the G code, and there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, they don't even have to do that
can be quite a few things, actually. Yeah.
I've been playing with a new CAM program, and I thought it was going to be pretty good, but it seems like, it's just like when you have a need, that's the time to learn it. And I've been really struggling with it, but I think it's going to work out all right. My CNC wood lathe, I tried a piece of aluminum on it yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Turned out okay.
Nice.
What is it?
It was part for an electrostatic generator.
Oh, okay.
But it was more of a test than anything.
Yeah.
Just to
So
see.
Mark, what was that CAD?
Pardon?
What was that CAM program you said you were going to
Dolphin.
show us? You
Dolphin
talk about
Print
using a new
Master.
CAM program.
Yeah, it's Dolphin Print Master.
Oh, okay.
There's about 1 million CAD programs out there. And when you get frustrated trying to make Fusion 360, you download this one, you download that one, you download this other one, then you find out you're frustrated with all those.
I don't think it's a good idea.
No, it's not.
Stick with one, even if it's hard. I don't use any CAD for what I do, for what I want to show in my videos. I don't need it. I didn't say it's not interesting because I really think it's interesting. But compare it a little bit. We're all video makers with editing software. Don't mess around too much with different programs because it's gonna make a big mess in your head. I tried, and for me it didn't work. So now I always use the same program, and it's almost unlimited.
Yeah.
Every time I make something in this editing program, and that's nice, and then you go watch some YouTube tutorials. Oh, they do this way. I'm gonna try it out. Then of course it doesn't work, but that's okay. That's all part of the fun.
See, this is 6 pieces. I made took their little cube, then I shrunk the height, made the width the size I wanted. This right here, this is a pyramid, and I made it the size to fit into the tripod, and then I shoved it up inside of the cube. And then this is the couple of copies of the cube here. And then I took the thread and turned it into a hole, and I shoved it up inside of this about a 1/2 inch. So, and it's all just different pieces,
Yeah. Well, I mean, now you've set me really thinking. This has been very useful because the thing I've been modeling in cardboard is an electric motor, just the size of a couple of alternative motors or something I'm doing. And it just occurs to me, I can just go onto the site, the company that makes the motors, download the DXF file or whatever, and pull it straight in. And I'm thinking, So this has been a trigger. I'll be trying to do that thing now.
Just a little advice, in my opinion. This is an opinion and advice. like Michael was saying, pick one and stick with it.
Mm.
Choose
Yeah.
carefully.
I think that's the best. That's the best. That's the best advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be Fusion 360. Having tried, Tinkercad and Fusion 360 anyway today.
The hard part on Fusion 360 is getting the free software.
Oh, yeah.
It's there, but even renewing mine, you have to go around in circles. It seems like to get there. It says
Every 3 years, isn't it? Something like that.
No, but just
every year.
Every year, but the link is there, and it says click this link for the free, and you click it, and you go off to Never Neverland, and you go around about 4 times. I gave up one time.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I gave up, and 2 weeks later, I got an email. Here, you got free. It came to me, but
okay.
yeah. But don't get discouraged trying to get it.
Okay.
It's amazing how many websites have a horrible user interface. I was on one that wanted me to put in an entry, and when I would put it in, the button to go to the next thing would disappear, and I could never finish filling out the stupid form. I wrote him a harsh note.
See, I put all my efforts into learning SketchUp, and then they changed their pricing structure. It used to be free for home users, and now it's the only free version is online, and that works, but not near as good as the downloaded version. And the downloaded version is only subscription now, and it's darned expensive. I got a 2016 full version, and I
don't like this. I don't like
no longer supported. Say what?
I said I don't like subscription stuff. You wind up paying for the thing about 10 times.
True. I like a subscription if it's cheap. There's nothing wrong with updates. $400 or $500 is not cheap.
No, it's never cheap.
No.
The last few years, I pay for Fusion. So, yeah. No,
do you make money from it then?
I wouldn't say I make money from it, but I use it so much that I don't know. It ended up being, I think, worthwhile for me to do that. So, I mean, there are some projects I've done, yes, and I've made money off of those projects. So, I guess so.
Yeah. It at least pays for itself.
It's like $400 and something this year. So,
is it annual?
Yeah, that's an annual fee. Yeah.
The only thing I do on subscription is Microsoft Office 360. What do you call it? That's about £70 a year, UK pounds. But I get a license for 5 people, so I give one to one of my kids and another one to another one of my kids.
Yeah, but that's not bad.
So that's the only thing I have on annual subscription. That and car insurance and house insurance and all that stuff.
In 10 years, though, you'll pay £700 for it.
Yeah, but there's more and more, well-known, more and more programs or applications that are all going subscription.
Yes.
You're not going to escape it if you want to use a computer.
True enough.
Well, you say that, but I'm not paying for any subscriptions.
Oh, this is the only subscription I pay. Well, no, my video software I use for editing videos, I pay for that. That's an annual subscription.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm going to preach open source for a minute.
I only use free software.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that for years and years and years. But something, when you, I must say, the stuff you pay for usually works better, it works easier, and saves you time. So
and it's better supported.
And it's better supported and
I
all
don't
that.
know about better support. I've actually, I'll give you a good reference here. I run KDN Live for my video editing, and I had some issues. I noticed that there were some things called multicam editing where you can have a matrix of cameras up, And you click on each one, and it would automatically cut to that track for you, and makes things real quick. But KDN Live almost had it, but they didn't. So I said, "Hey guys, can y'all add that in for me? Can we add this in?" 3 months later, they had it. You try to do that with professional software, it take you. I've been after another program that I use that's a free program, but it's not open source. They ignore me. They won't add anything. I'm on an IRC channel for these guys. I can get dang near real-time support. Only issue is some of these guys are over in Europe, and I've got to wait a couple hours for them to wake up, or I've got to stay up late. Fortunately, I do anyway, so that doesn't make any difference.
I'm still not awake.
Yeah. So, yeah, it works both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is if I want to change something, I can download the source code and I can go do it myself. And because I do program, I can do that.
I can't.
Yeah, the other day I had an email with Billy, and he put some C code in there without thinking about it. I got what he meant, but
I don't know. I still see, like I said, I pay for it, but I see it as a tool, like any other tool in my shop. And if that tool I use a lot, then I'm going to have to pay for it, type of thing. Also, I think on the free stuff, if you're going to get it for free, maybe you should kick them a couple bucks, here and there, because you're using their product that they put a lot of super time and effort into and stuff too. So,
well, your situation is different. You're selling products that you're making money off of. Me,
not very many this year. It's been pretty
just
bad.
got started. It's just started.
Well, no, I mean, I see everybody's point, and I understand that.
There's a proper thing and a proper tool for everybody. I've been running Windows or Linux since 2008. I don't even own a Windows device. I do have one sitting on my desk that belongs to to the company I work for. I think I've booted that Windows machine up twice now since I've had it since October, and that was just to download the updates and close it back up so they could see that it had updates loaded to it.
I would run Linux except for the fact that I put it on my machine, and I had a Minolta color laser printer, and I downloaded the driver, and I never ever got the driver to work, and I went right back to Windows.
Ask Billy.
They probably have support for it now, Harold. I've got a desk jet over here that's 12, 13 years old, and it runs on that still.
Well, I got discouraged. I thought, am I going to have to maneuver around and try to figure out how to, program my own drivers or whatever, and it run me off.
I don't know. I have. Let's see. I run 1, 2, 3. I have 3 computers in the shop that I run on. I have 3, 4 computers in the house. I don't want to be on a computer. To me, the computer is just a tool, and that's it. And you guys who do software and Linux and all that stuff, and can write code. I don't write code. I'm in my shop 12, 14 hours a day, and I'm working on projects for myself or a friend or whatever I'm doing. But I'd rather be doing work than sitting on the computer all the time. I could sit down and draw something in Fusion in 15 minutes and print out a piece of paper, and I've got a plan. I waste very little stock. Very, very few things go to scrap with me, and I make it the first time. I rarely have to remake something. So it is a tool. It's a tool to help me be efficient in my shop, to get things done, and I can move on to the project. And I also draw and model complicated things that have 15, 50, 30 parts or something, and to make them work all together. It's very difficult to sit down with a piece of paper and pencil and make that happen. It takes a huge amount of effort. But on the computer, you could do it very quickly, very efficiently, and you'll pick up your mistakes and do it all on a computer where it doesn't cost you anything, in a sense. So you don't go to the shop and go, oh, well, that didn't fit together. Oh, I have to remake that. I hate wasting time, and so.
Oh yeah. If I had any advice for somebody in high school, it would be learn CAD.
Oh yeah. If you're going to be anything working on anything, learn CAD, learn how to use it, and learn how to read from it. I mean, I've been using CAD. I've used, I don't know, probably 30 different CAD programs, and some are better than others, and some are way better than others. So I don't think Fusion's the perfect one. I think Inventor is probably better. I like Inventor a lot, but you can do some other things in Fusion that you can't do in Inventor. So, have you ever tried Onshape? Anybody ever tried Onshape? Excellent CAD program. The only thing there is they limit you on how many files you could save, and the files are kind of public. So I've used Onshape a bit, but because of the public thing, it kind of bothers me. There's some stuff there's some things I do that I don't want to share. Some things I do for other people that neither one of us want to share. So I kind of shied away. I got away from Onshape, but it's an excellent program.
If you're like me,
with a bizarre idea that you save your work in your computer and it's public. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, you can only have so much so much stuff private or something. It's kind of weird. The guys who developed Onshape are people that used to work with and develop SolidWorks, and they started this other program, and I think they're in England actually, and they developed Onshape, and it's a more of a web. I want to say it's more web. It's a web browser type base CAD program, but it's very good.
It's a bit like Audacity for audio works, audio tuning. You can use Audacity. I don't know Audacity. I used it last week for the first time in my life. I never used it before, and I saw in some how you say over YouTube that now also Audacity could share some of your files. That it's not really private anymore. I don't know the details, but I think it's a bit bizarre.
Audacity got in trouble. They were a really good open source program, and they got kind of sidebarred. It's been forked now, if I'm not mistaken, and you can go use the forked version of it and not have to worry about your privacy or your files being shared out there. I use it quite often just to normalize my video for my videos. Again,
I never used it before. This weekend I made a piece of music in it, and it's fun to do. So, in fact, instead of making drawings in CAD, I made music in Audacity. I think it's basically a bit the same idea. If you make drawing on paper, it's very difficult to see it in 3D, and you can't change it. You have to redo it. In software, you can change whatever you want, whenever you want. I think that is fantastic. I should learn it to be good. But as I say, I don't need it. For what I do in my workshop, I don't need any CAD program or whatever. It's like Paul said, I see the part in my head in 3D, so I don't have a problem at all to visualize a part in my brains, small as they are, but that I can do. So, but I can understand if you want to make if you want to save documents for, you have a client, he wants 200 of these parts. You make the price, you make a drawing, you give him a copy, you keep a copy for yourself, because maybe in 2 years the same client wants again the same parts, and you have the plans in CAD. That's a double win. But for what I do, I really don't see the need. I see the fun. I see that it's interesting, not no problem at all. But I don't need it. See?
But I'm quite interested in what Mark was saying about running simulations. You know, with a kind of computer stroke engineering brain, like most of you guys. I quite like the idea of actually designing something and then see it running. So I might explore that side of it, just as a.
You can do that
challenge.
in Fusion, Paul. Also,
yeah.
And you can do that in Fusion. You can do that in FreeCAD, CATIA. I don't know what else you can do it in.
I've got Fusion. So
years ago, I drew 2 parts in Fusion, and I couldn't get it. I don't know how to put them together, so I sent them to Randy. I said, "Hey, Randy, can you make these work for me?" And 2 minutes later, it comes back. Oh, there it is. It's colored and everything.
Yeah, poor Randy tried to teach me Fusion 360. I think he went to drinking afterwards.
I get emails, I don't know, at least a few times a month from people asking for help. So
Cloud 42 is put up some really good.
James does quite a few.
James is really good.
Yeah. Good videos have been putting up.
I've actually learned a couple things from him. I go, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that." Type of thing.
That's what YouTube is for, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, that's a good one.
And Blue Hands, Mike Klotz.
Mike. Yeah.
I made a part and I couldn't figure out how to. It was a curve, and I couldn't figure out how to make the slot in the curve. I kept trying, and I sent it to him, and he goes, "No, you make the slot up here, and then you just project it down through the part." Oh no, shit! Yeah. Boom. Yeah.
Mike's
I think one of the things we used to do a lot in school was rapid prototyping, and I think that's.
If Mike's watching, I got to give him a salute.
I just bought a little cheapy crucible on, I guess it was from Amazon, about $17. It's about 4 inches high, you know, and I put it in my last video. And somebody says, "Well, you're going to have to temper that crucible," and I thought, well, I don't remember ever tempered one before. The ones I got back in the 70s, they're still working. But so I started watching videos to see how to temper my crucible, and I watched 20 videos. There was 20 different ways.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah. So I stuck the little booger in my new hot oven there, and I started it at 400 for a couple of hours, and then I went on started 200, and then 400, and then 600, and 2 hours on each one. Then I went to 1800, and it must have done some good to it because the black doesn't rub off on my hands now. That's all. First time I've ever.
You melted anything? You got anything melted yet?
No. You know, when I was melting those 22 cases, I just didn't wait long enough. I got to looking at them. There were holes in them, you know, laying there in that little metal crucible. And I thought, well, if there's holes, some material went somewhere. So I poured it out, and there were little brass BBs all in the bottom of that thing. If I'd waited just a little longer, it would have been just a puddle of brass. So obviously, it's going to do it just fine. And of course, I expect those 22 cartridges to be an alloy as well, because they have to be squeezed and punched, and they take a flat sheet and make it into a tube, you know. So it's not really all that pure brass. But now when I go to the range, I just take my brass broom and I get everything, 22, 45, aluminum cases, brass cases, it don't matter. And
What happens if you heat it and the primer's still good in it?
well, the primers are
Bang.
aluminum.
Bang.
Yeah,
A very small bang.
Yeah, I remember people talking about, well, you're going to be real careful, because if you put, when I was melting lead, casting your own bullets, be careful, you're going to have one of them blow all that hot lead in your face.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't do it, though. I've heard them pop in there a couple of times, but of course I got tired of doing that. It's hot outside, and you have to be out there all afternoon to make 500 bullets, and I'm too lazy for that.
But James,
huh?
I was going to say, James P. was asking a question here I think we need to try to address. He was asking what everyone's opinion on was the best beginner's CAD program to start with.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to answer, but I think it's a good question.
If you,
It's
you
a
know,
very good question.
I think any program just about you can learn, even if you're a beginner. It's on 3D and modeling, it's grasping the idea in your head about what you're looking at. Can you visualize a 3D object and get it on basically a piece of paper? How are you going to get it on a piece of paper? That is, I think, the hardest thing for somebody to sit down and do. Anybody could take a piece of paper and draw it out with a pencil, draw something with a pencil, but can they draw it 3D with a pencil? And
no, that's pretty
making
hard.
the jump, making the jump from 2D to 3D, that's what you need to do. And so, if you can grasp that, you can learn any CAD drawing program.
Well, you need to know the dummy stuff, like the very few beginner steps that the guys that already know so well, they never think to tell you.
Yeah.
I say that's not true. I mean, I've done videos on CAD drawing and using Fusion, and there's somebody else mentioned in what's the guy? He works for AutoCAD, and he was doing it for a few years, doing programs or drawing stuff live and everything, and he did great videos, and somebody mentioned him in the comments there, and I've watched a lot of his videos. They're very good. But yeah, there's things you'll have to sit down and go, you got to learn how to draw a line, Yeah, they're very basic thing. You got to learn how to draw a line. Well, it doesn't matter what program you use. You're going to have to learn how to draw a line. And so,
yeah, but look, take for instance.
The bottom line is what you're saying too. It's seat time. But we talked about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's seat time, and you gotta sit in the seat and keep going.
But
yeah, but after you spend an hour trying to figure out why it is that this piece that you think the middle of it is right here, why did it flip end to end every time you go to do something? You know what I'm saying? I one day I was just sitting here cussing the computer and looking at a rectangular piece I had, and every time I wanted to move it, it would flop over this way or flop over that way, but it never would rotate in the middle.
Well, that's technical issues there.
What was that? How did you find out?
What I'm getting at, though, is for a beginner, it's you could take as simple as a pencil, and say, I'm going to draw the pencil. I don't care what you pick. Make it a simple thing. It doesn't have to be complicated to make it this easier. But if you're a beginner, pick something very easy that's sitting right in front of you that you had in your hands, and you say, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to draw that pencil, and you will work and find the tools you need to do that, and you will work through the problem. It is the very best. If you just try to sit down and say, well, I'm just going to dream something up and draw it, you know what? You're not going to learn. But if you take objects that you have that are common objects that you're familiar with, it's way easier to say, I'm going to duplicate that. Take a center punch. Center punch is pretty easy to draw, you think, so take a center punch or something like that, a tool, a screwdriver, anything.
I got to add too that no different than I don't know how to forge. I know Michelle's really good at forging, but
Hmm.
you give me an anvil and a hammer and heat the piece up, and I can read books about it and stuff, but it's also watching somebody that's done it and learning that. And so even the same thing with a CAD program. Yeah, you may watch this guy and you just go, oh my God, look what he just did. Look what he just did. But you watch enough of those and you start picking up things also.
Right.
More seat time, but.
And I think most of the programs too have great tutorials.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, Fusion has. You type in anything on their help stuff, and you can get help tutorial wise. Some of them a lot of them are videos on how to draw a line or how to use a certain tool.
Well, I don't know. I watched so many tutorials I can almost speak Swedish now. but I can't do Fusion 360.
I was Stefan just mentioned something that pops up a lot of time is a lot of these tutorials you get or watch, they're outdated. They don't match the version of software you're using, so you do have to be careful with that.
If it's going to help me, it's got to look like what I see.
And that's, you know, FreeCAD had the bad habit of you type in something and you'd find a tutorial from 3 years ago and it's from 6 versions out, and it's not going to work for what you're doing because they've changed stuff and have had such a dramatic development cycle that it's just out of date. So you do have to be careful in that respect.
And Dean just brought up something there. He says his first Fusion project was drawing his kitchen. Don't make that your first project. But I would just say that also Fusion, using a program what is it designed for? It's not designed to draw a building. I'll tell you right now, it is not. That's not the idea of Fusion, to draw a building or a structure or something like that. I've drawn some, but it's not. That's not what it's designed to do. So, it's designed to make mechanical things, or sheet metal things. There are programs that are designed to draw buildings and stuff. So, or cabinetry work or stuff like that. Fusion, you can do it. You might, but it's really not designed for that. The people who made it, didn't sit down and say, well, we want it to be able to draw structures. That's not what they did.
Somebody just commented, said, learn basic drafting skills.
Yeah.
And it'll make learning CAD way easier.
Yeah, Dennis there said that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, get a book, get a textbook, that sort of thing.
So FreeCAD actually does have, and I've not used it, but it does have a drafts and I went all the workbenches, and they do have workbenches specifically for doing architectural stuff.
Oh, there, see?
So that's how they get around that, is if they add workbenches to do weird stuff like that.
SketchUp does the same thing.
Yeah, so Fusion 360 might not do it out of the box, but I bet you somewhere there's a plug-in or a workbench or whatever they call it, an equivalent to do that, maybe.
I don't know. I'm not aware of it. I've gone through an awful lot of stuff, and
maybe they are just geared toward engineering. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, my neighbors, the roof videos I put up, the roof building that we're building over a container, I drew all that in Fusion. I drew my shop edition all in Fusion. So I mean, you can't. It's not that you can't do it, but it's not really, I would say, designed for that.
Yeah.
My wife had an uncle that he didn't believe in germs. That's just sort of set the pattern for you here. And he said, "You got a computer, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can it draw a house?" And I said, "Well, that depends on what software you got." He said, "I don't know. Can it draw a house?" He said, "They got one up at the high school that can draw a house." I said, yeah, my computer can draw a house. I knew he wasn't going to get the software idea.
But we're all the age group where it was pencil and paper starting, right? triangles
Yeah.
and starting
sure.
there. Yeah. I got a little quick story. I drew my own remodel by paper, right? And I had to roll it up and take it to the printer, to the blue printer. And I took my little drawing like it was gold, carried it gingerly because I didn't want to damage it. I didn't want to redraw it by any means. And I had done redraws, I had erased and stuff. Yet for work, for probably 20 years, I would go to architects' offices and pick up a whole set of building plans and walk out the door and throw them in the back of my truck. And they were all hand drawn on vellum. And I never treated those worth, but my own little jewel, boy, I didn't want to damage that.
You say that you're all that age. I hate to say this, but when I was growing up and playing with my computer when I was a kid, I actually had AutoCAD on my was it my XT? Yeah, I had it on my XT.
They didn't have computers until I was in my 30s.
Right.
And
But it doesn't.
there were no cell phones either.
No cell phones back when I was growing up either.
You know what really helps with a CAD program is if you got some individual help to get you started.
Yes.
Yeah. If you
I
can
have a
have
mentor.
some guy come over to your house and sit down with you and you work on it for an hour.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to have them come over to your house now. You got virtual now.
Well, I have a
Well,
mentor.
that works.
A mentor is excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I did it with a guy in email, and it was painful, but without it.
I'm too dumb for that.
But you have to sit on your computer and do it yourself.
Oh,
If someone else is sitting on your computer and shows, and then you click here, click here, click here, that doesn't work. You have to do it yourself.
Right.
Move
So
the
I want
mouse,
to talk about that for a second. The
talk
wife,
about it.
Yeah, the wife and I would do web design and development, and we worked back to back. I'd work where I'm sitting, and she worked behind me, and she'd be doing some stuff and get frustrated, and I would go over to her desk and show her how to do it on her desk, and sit in her chair and show her. She wouldn't get it, and I finally got to the point to where I would just remote into her computer from my desk with her right behind me. I said, "Okay, honey, here's what you do. Take your mouse, and you see this little button." And I would actually move the mouse and show her while she was sitting in her chair. And we would walk through it that way. And believe it or not, that worked better for her than me telling her to move off the keyboard and showing her that way than anything I ever found.
But Billy, there's a fundamental here. It's like, I couldn't teach my wife to drive, right?
There is
I'd end up with something in my face. So it just doesn't work, right?
Wait a second. You can't teach your wife to do anything.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the remote.
Let's get this right. Okay.
Yeah, the only way.
From that
You
equation.
can teach her to get mad.
That's
The only way it would work, Billy, is
built
if
in.
you
That's built in.
disguised as somebody else, Billy. That's the only way you'd be able to do that.
Well, I
I
wouldn't
guess
mind.
that's why the remote method worked, because it kind of removed the husband aspect out of that equation. She wasn't looking at me at the time.
Yeah, she doesn't have to look at you, and then it's okay. You see, she doesn't get upset.
I got a question to Billy. Is FreeCAD now? Does that only work on Linux systems or
No, it's Windows and Mac.
Windows also? Okay.
And Mac.
I wouldn't mind somebody teaching me Fusion 360.
I'm gonna
as
download
they don't call me
FreeCAD and I'm
honey.
gonna take a look at FreeCAD.
And there's workbenches, and you can add new workbenches. If you got any questions, I can answer some rudimentary stuff and get you making it look like I've got it running if you want, so it works a little better for you.
Make it run better on Windows, or
just make it work better, period, because there's a few little weird options you want to turn on and off to make it look a little more user-friendly that they don't do out of the box.
okay. Well, I'll get it. I just typed it in on search here, so it says download now. Okay, well I'll download it and take a look at it.
I was going to look at Onshape, and I wrote down FreeCAD, and I just decided I'm not turning any of those on. It's just confusion if I go on to something else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mark said it, pick one and learn it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to have some cross-discipline too, because they each do different things different ways, and sometimes one will do something that the other one won't do, or one will do something that's easier to do than in the other.
I think I'm gonna have a look at this. As I say, I don't need it, but I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Same here.
Okay,
The-
guys.
The one thing,
Uh,
Michelle,
And lucky I'm single, so I don't have anyone in my back to hit me. Or
but Michelle, years ago, Lipton gave me a version of AutoCAD 2D, and I struggled learning how to draw things. But the one thing you could do is you could sit there and go, "Oh, I need what's the clearance on this? We're down in the thousands." And you can draw a couple things, very rudimentary, and to ask it, and it says, "Oh, that's 38 thousandths that you need there." It's. I mean, that's invaluable where you can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Thanks everybody for talking. Been a good session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah,
Interesting one.
another good ARW discussion. See you guys next week.
Thank you,
Bye.
Harold.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harold.